Hi, so here we are at the tutorial, and I have to tell you this is take 3. So let's hope that this time it's successful. So this is for the Hingeless mini album that I make, and this side is our pages, and over here is our boxed. Well, let me get the camera down here so you can see. Will be the box pop out. And this is what we're going to be making. And this is with the All Glammed Up paper. Now for this one, it's black. I'm going to do the next one with white cardstock because I don't want to have two the same color. So let me tell you, this is what you're going to cut. You're going to need 12 of these. And the thing is, it's going to seem like a lot of cardstock in the beginning, but actually you're not using as much pattern paper, so it kind of evens out. You're going to cut 4 pieces that are 5 by 6 1/4. And then for our middle pages, you're going to want to cut 6 3/4 by 5 1/2. And then we need a 6 3/4 by 6 inch. And then you're going to want, which I did not cut, so I'm going to get that cut right now, is a 6 by 6 inch base page. Okay, and yeah, my cutter is over here. It's huge. That's why you won't see it much in my videos. So here's my 6 by 6 inch base, and we're going to take each one of these. So I've already pre-scored them. And I'm just going to show you with the one. We're going to score it 1/2 and 3/4. You're going to score it, you know, on this long end on your 6 3/4 and 6 1/4 end. You're going to score it 1/2 and 3/4, and you're going to want to do this to every single one of them. Now to start off with, so I was going to have these pre-adhesive on, but I wanted to. Thought I'd better wait and show you, because just on this one, on our 6 inch one that's going to go on our base, you're going to want your adhesive on the inside, because this is going to go onto the back side of our base page. So here's our base. Now one thing, I don't know, you're going to want to make sure, and I need to just fix this better. Seems like I'm off a hair. And I've noticed that with my cutter. If I sit down, sometimes I do get things off when I'm cutting. I know that sounds odd, because we want it to be pretty much, well, exactly the same. So it looks like I'm still a little bit off from my size here. So I'm just going to do some trimming so we're even. Oh, wow, I've really cut something off, and that's why I had to redo this video already like this is the 3rd time. Things are off and I don't know why. Of course, it could be my OCD-ness too. Okay, so we're going to put this to the back side. And you're going to have your score tape here at the top, and then you'll have your 1/4 inch gusset. Once you get it pretty well matched, then you can go ahead and remove your score tape. Now when you push this back, go ahead and go on that first score so that you have a gusset right here. Now, for some reason this is still off by about 1/8 of an inch, so I'm going to trim it. Now, I don't know why I'm having such measurement problem here. Okay, so now that is what we're going to do with all of these, and I'm going to go ahead and get my tape on these, and I will be right back. So that's the boring part, so go ahead and get your tape on the back side like you just did for that first. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and continue on adding these all around. Now if you're uncomfortable, go ahead with just removing all of your score tape. Go ahead and just remove about 1/4 to 1/3 of it. That way you can line it up on that first score line. Remember, we need that 1/4 inch gusset. And then let's go ahead and remove it. And again, I'm going to have to do a little trimming because I was really off on my cutting. And I'm kind of wondering if this package of paper maybe just wasn't a little off, because I've never cut this uneven before. So let me just go ahead and line up my ruler, and I'm going to take that edge off because it will drive me nuts. Stick that back in the cutter. And that's one thing I like about this big cutter is I can do a lot more cutting than on my small one. Now, you want to make sure as we're folding this over, so you can see, you don't want to overlap this at all. Because you need your pages to be able to fold nicely. Ah, that still slipped on me. There we go. You know, when I made the first one, because I don't use patterns and I don't write down my patterns, it went so smoothly. And now that I've tried to do the tutorial 3 different times, it's given me all kinds of problems here. So hopefully yours will go nice and smooth. Smoother than what I'm doing. So there we go. It's best when you're removing that you do keep it down pretty tight. Now, when you close your book, so I usually go over, down, and then up. And this will come together better because we still, after you get all your pages together, you'll still want to go back and like burnish this part that made your gusset. So it will lay in there really nice. I put a magnet on the front of mine. So that's one thing you can keep in mind. I use a large magnet, or you can also bring a ribbon from behind here. And that is what the back will look like. So now we want to go ahead and add our middle. Now for this, I do some measuring. I don't usually do a lot of measuring. I do a lot of by sight. But for this one, because I do want things to be lined up so that my pages aren't off-centered, so I'm going to go ahead on my paper with a pencil, and I'm just going to mark where my 3 inches is, and that will tell me the center. Or you can eyeball it. Like I said, on this one, I don't want to eyeball it, and you'll see why as we keep laying our pages down. If you don't eyeball it, they're going to look funny and off-centered. So you'll still need your ruler. Now you're going to take your next one, that is the 5.5 inches by 6 3/4. Let's go ahead and fold up our score lines. Now on this one, our score tape will go here on the outside. And then once again, I want to find the center. So we know that this one is the 2 and the 5.5. So we're going to mark a 2.5 very lightly, and adhesive on the back side of that 1/2 inch score. And then you want to line this up. Now this page is going to sit right on top of the edge of your base. Line up your little marks. And of course mine is looking off. Oh yeah, this album has really given me a run for my money this time. Alright. And it might help if I mark things correctly, but no, it's still off. This is really odd. This is driving me crazy, actually. That's right. I want my tape down. It's still off. Okay, I am either measuring backwards or something. Okay, because see, you want to have still not on there right. Wow. The center should have matched the center, and I'm sure it just has to do with my measuring skills. Because you do want to have about the same amount on each side. And then this should be the exact same length as right here. Oh, that just seems off to me, but let's go ahead. Let me get this one folded real quick and see possibly what my problem is. I'm going to go ahead and mark it again. Oh, I know what it is. It's not 2. This is 5.5. Okay. Yes, it's me. I marked it at 2.5. It needs to be 2 7/5. So that puts us better at the middle. So you're going to get to see me take some page off with score tape. Now if you're using a Cartabella paper and it's this linen, you can do this probably once. And to be honest with you, it will tear it up just a little bit, but it's not going to be noticeable. And let me get this marked correctly now. One of these days, I'm going to do a video, and I say this in every video, there's going to be no mistakes. But it won't happen anytime soon. I apologize. So, if you do make a mistake, don't be afraid to try and get that paper off, because you'll see where it's a little bit mangled up here, but you know what, it's not going to show under my pattern paper, so it's not a problem. So on our 5.5 inch, you're going to want to measure not 2.5, but more like 2 7/5, or not quite 2 7/5. And I marked it on the wrong side. Oh, you guys, I am so sorry. Like I said, this little album, for some reason, has decided to be the death of me. And you know what? That's where it's going to stay. Now you'll want to go back and get those off. I know it's more like 2 3/8 or 3 7/8. So let me double check with this one, see where we're at. Man, this is frustrating. My marks are just way off. So I myself am going to eyeball it. So find your centers. And if they come out good for you, I don't know why mine are not. But you, you do want to try and have it centered. So I am just mostly using my eyeballs here for centering, since it's wanting to give me so much trouble. That back, make sure. Sorry, let me just silence my phone. Put our third flat down. I'm going to go ahead and just see something. Well, my centers are pretty close. It's got to be me and that ruler. Or it's got to be me, just period. All right, I'm going to match those up. And when you fold that back, let's see something here. Nope, they're the same length. Sorry, I'm just kind of laying mine down to get an idea of where my center mark really should be. Garbage can closer. And our last one. Oh, that was our last one. Sorry. We're going on to our 5-inch now. Now, I should be able to handle this quite well. So, with your 5-inch, it's 2.5. I think I got that one right. And I want to make sure I'm just doing a really light mark, so that it won't show and I can take it off, because you don't want it in that 1/4 inch gusset. Now on here, see, we're going to be putting this at the edge of here, but you still want to mark it at the middle. So you'll want to mark it on the inside. It's going to sit right where that one, this last hinge, it's going to sit where, you know, we put it down where it ended. So we still want to go with the 6 to find our center. And then we went 2.5, since this is our 5-inch. Now, one thing I noticed, this little page just seems to be a hair over, so I will be trimming that. And like I said, I don't know if it's the way I was cutting. Well, it has to be the way I'm cutting. I just really think this pad of paper also was a little off, which will happen once in a while. So now you have this ending right here. You don't want to overlap it like we did. You want it to sit at the edge now. And the reason being is if we get too much bulk here at this second score line, you have the score, then you have your 1/4 inch, then you have your score line, and then the 1/2 inch. If you get too much bulk up there by putting it up by the score line, you're going to have a really bulky page. So that should fit just nicely inside there. Keep on moving here and get them all laid down. And I think this is a fun little album for bridal showers, for proms, for just for girls in general. I wish I had an endless desk with lots of room. And then if you did put any marks there, make sure. I'll go back and get the others off too. So now you can kind of see the idea. So if this was an explosion box, see, your pages would be sitting upright and then they'd come down. So you could even make this as a huge explosion box. It just won't fit in your album, of course. But this is the idea that I was trying to get. And then it will also hold the 24 pictures. So you can get a lot of pictures in here. Now, we'll also be doing a little pocket, and I'll show you. You can either do a pocket, which I'll go back in the finished one and show you, or you can do a flap, or you can leave them plain. So now I'm going to just go ahead and get all my pencil marks off real quick. Oops, let's get you. See, my cutting is way off. So what I'm going to do is I need to cut these down 1/2 inch, and you might have to too. We should have gone just with the 6, not 6 1/4. So let me just cut these down, and if you have to cut them down, you'll just want to put them into your cutter and take that 1/2 inch off. Let's see, where's my small cutter so I can show you. It's actually quite easy. Just lay them, and I apologize, just lay them in here. And then just take that edge off. Do not know how or why I got that measurement so messed up. So you will need to take off probably a full 1/2 inch. So if you just go over here to the 1/2 inch, you'll be able to just remove it, and then it will fit perfect. That one. So I'm really sorry that we're having to do this. Just one of those times I just could not get my measurements figured out right. Okay, now let me open this back up. So You had to take a 1/4 inch off. When you're cutting these then, yeah, you're going to want to cut them at 6, not 6 1/4. There we go. Now they'll lay together. I just had to do little adjustments. We're good. So now you see how you have a little box starting to form in the middle. I knew I needed to take off a little bit on one of these, I believe, because I did cut it longer, but I guess not. And we're going to go over. Just need to fix that crease a little bit. There's the one I needed to fix. So I did. And again, if you need to take any of these off, any of these for adjustments, just stick it right there in your cutter. Much better. And it's easy to fix. Now what I need to do is also fix my score lines. On these back ones. So actually I'm just going to bend them back on each other so that we can get it. There we go. This Cartabella, not mine. This Cartabella paper is a little bit stiffer. So it does take a little bit of working it to get it to relax. There we go. Just like when you make your hinges, you have to sit there and play with them a little bit. Get them to relax. Okay. And there you'll have your box. So what I want to do now is take a large magnet. The backing. And just put it down. So you want to make sure you leave plenty of room so we don't have issues with our cover. I mean, when you cover it with your pattern paper. I always put the score tape on top. It helps ensure that it'll stay down. Just mess with that hinge a little bit to get them to be a little square. Just play with it until your paper, there we go, does what you want it to do. This one is driving me crazy, so I am going to take a little bit off. Take about a 1/4 inch. I think this is the one that did need to be cut by a 1/4 inch. A lot of times that's the problem when I'm designing things and making things, I don't use anyone else's tutorials. I don't write down mine. So if you watch my tutorials, you're pretty much learning and doing it exactly with me, because I'm terrible at writing them down. There we go. cutting that made it so much nicer. So now, see, you have a box, magnet, and then when you open this and you look inside, you'll see the box continues. So you just have to kind of bend those hinges, and then as you keep opening layer after layer after layer after layer, then you'll get to your bottom. And let me show you what mine looked like. Now when we go to do our little pop-up here, what I am going to do is I'm going to show you the papers. What I used was, in the All Glammed Up, you have a couple of sheets that have these 6x6s. So those are the ones I used to cover the inside. And then I just had a few pieces left over from the pages, so I went ahead and used those. But mostly these are the 6x6 cut aparts. Now I just kept going and going. So down here I took the dress one. And in your paper collection, so you'll have tons and tons to work with. So you'll have all these different cut aparts. There's the shoe. So you'll have all these different cut aparts that you can work with in your squares. And like the dress, so you could cut your dress in the 6x6 square or 5x5 square, whatever size you need to really have it look the way you want it to look. So now here's our little pockets that I was telling you about. And I made mine into pockets, but you can do flaps. So if you want to do them as flaps, you can do them now. If you're going to do them as pockets, don't do them until after you put your pattern paper down. If you want to do them like this. This is just a flat pocket. It doesn't have the gussets on the side. The reason being, I didn't want it to take up more room. And it will add to your bulkiness if you do the pockets with the, gosh, I can't stay on camera today. When you do the pockets, you know, with the gussets, it's going to take up quite a bit of room. Oh, and then what I did is for this front piece, then I just used the back side for the coordinating. And then this one, and this one, and this one, and this one. So you can go ahead and cover it with any of the papers you want, and then I'll do the shoe front with you. Very simple. We'll be making the flowers. This is just a stick pin that I made to go with it. And that is your little pop-up. And of course, if you had to cut like I did and change the size of some of your papers to fit perfectly, then you'll want to measure them before you cut your pattern paper and adjust it accordingly, since they will be off just a hair from our original measurements. But now you know that last one, don't cut it 6 1/4, just you'll already have it cut down. Now, if you're going to use a ribbon and you still want a magnet, that's fine. You're going to want to put your ribbon across the back. But remember, if you're going to use that shoe, you're going to kind of have your shoe in the way of the ribbon. But for the back, I'm going to go ahead and use a 6x6 piece of my score tape. You can use whichever adhesive you have or like. I'm just going to cut this down. Off the side just to fit, or you can take your score tape around the edges, and you can also just use your wet adhesive. Okay, now that will be ready to go on the inside cover of our book. So let's just go ahead and set that one aside. And then we will get started over here. And I did a double ribbon. And this is the hingeless side. So these are your pages. And I usually go back and I'll put some cardstock on there sometimes, the pattern paper. And this is going to be the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages. So we're going to cut a base and then the pages. So you're going to want to cut your base. I know, you're probably thinking, measurements, oh, get them right. I promise I will. So we're going to cut an 8-inch piece of cardstock by 6 inches. So go ahead and let's get our 8-inch by 6-inch cardstock cut, and then I'll be back and we'll cut our pages. Okay, you have your base cut. Now, one thing to think about before we start laying these down on the base is, how do you want your pages to close? Do you want to have the ribbon, or do you want to have like a flap where you take, or not a flap, but a latch where you take the cardstock and you bring it up and then there's a magnet here? Do you want to have that kind of a closure? Because we want to make sure it gets laid down before you lay down your base page. So you already be thinking about that. Now, one reason I wanted the ribbon, it just looks more girly with this paper. But if you want to do the cardstock that comes up and over, and then you have a magnet here and a magnet on your cardstock to hold it down, you can do that too, but it needs to go under the base before you attach it to your page. So let's get started with scoring our pages. So you need 5 pages that are 7.5 by 6, and then your base is 8 by 6. Now we're going to start with scoring these on the 7.5-inch side at 1/2, 1, and 1.5, and I'll show you why. You want to have, I like to have the double piece that is going to adhere down to the book just for extra strength. So go ahead and bend all of your score lines back, and then you'll see you've got the 3 1/2-inch score lines. And then on this very last one, go ahead and put down your adhesive. And remove the backing, make sure nothing's sticking out, and then you're just going to fold it over. So that's going to give us a little extra strength, and that will be, there we go. So we're going to put the score tape here, and that will be the piece that is going to be down onto our base page. Now, if you've ever made a waterfall, you'll start seeing how this is just a waterfall but turned the opposite way and made a lot bigger. And let me go ahead and do another one with you, and then I'll go ahead and turn off the camera and get mine all ready for laying down. So we're going to score it 1/2, 1, and 1.5. And again, let's just fold everything back. And score tape or adhesive right here at that very first 1/2 inch. And you know, this isn't a selling point, but I have to tell you, if you are using any other cardstock that's not at least 110-pound weight, you may be a little disappointed on how your pages lay. And it's just a much heavier, and it has a linen type feel to it. So that's what you're going to do to the next 3 pages. And go ahead on this one right here, if you're using score tape, on the back side of that double fold, go ahead and put your score tape down. And when I get back, we will go ahead and add it on to our base. Okay, I have all 5 of my pages done. So we have that doubled 1/2 inch there to give it strength. You have your 1/2 inch gusset, and then you're going to have your score tape at the top. And if you've watched any of my other videos on my Hingeless mini album, hinges pages, then you'll see that you can also make these any size you want. The only difference is you will have a longer cover. It has to be longer to fit the way your pages are going to lay. So what you want to do, or this is what I do on the 6-inch side, I like to have it facing towards me. It just makes it easier. And just work on this paper a little bit more because it is a little stiffer. Okay, so I'm going to fold this so that the tape is back. I don't want to have to be worrying about trying to keep it straight with that gusset. And I'm going to remove just a portion of my score tape. Make sure nothing's sticking over the edges. And I'm going to line it up with that edge, just like you would if you were making a waterfall. And one thing that is happening just with everything I seem to be making today, my base is a little bit off. So I'm just going to use my blade. And I don't, like I said, I don't know if it's me, the cutter, or what is happening. I still think the paper is off. I'm going to grab my knife, and I'm just going to trim that off so that it's even. And there we go. Okay, so our next one, again, just going to burnish those edges some more. And just like on a waterfall, we're going to match up. I'm going to be back. I'm going to trim my pages and make sure everything is completely straight because something's not matching here, and I'll be right back. Okay, I really do think the paper was off because you know how you cut it in half, 6? Well, it couldn't have been a true 12-inch sheet because it was off. And when you cut it 6 by 6, I mean a 12-inch sheet in half, it should be perfect. Anyway, a little frustration there. So now we're going to take our next one. So now you're going to show 1, 2, 3. You're going to see all your half inches here. And then you'll notice how, see, it'll start being able to lay over each other, and it'll give you room to mat your pages. So we're going to just keep going down all 5 of them, and we're going to start where that one ended. These are a lot of fun too. If you're involved with orders or you do craft fairs, I do a lot of those in the summer. You want to be able to do some albums that you can get done quickly, but that are still very attractive and will function and last. And I've made a lot of these. I've sold a lot of them, and they do not, I don't have any problem with this coming apart or tearing. Like I said, you do want to use a good quality, heavier cardstock. Cardabell works great, I think, for that. And you want to double this, so you have that little extra weight. It seems to really help. Now we're going to put our last one down. And then after the last one is down, if you need to trim your base any, you can. Only because of human error, the way some papers are, sometimes, you know, humans cut them with machines, they might be off. It never hurts. There we go. But guess what? I think we're going to match. Yay! We had some success here. Now your pages, as they get more weight on them from the pattern paper, will lay flatter. And you just kind of have to adjust your gussets. Now this is where you want to decide what kind of a closure. Let me cut a strip so I can show you Now, if you're thinking that you want to have the paper that comes at the top with the magnets, then that's what I do. I just lay it there. I don't even score it. There's really no need to, unless you really want to. And that would be adhered down. Now, one thing that I don't do though, one thing that I don't do is I don't add the magnet here or here, and actually the top piece I would do last, because I have found when matting the rest of your pages, I have put the magnets down first, and because it does bring up some weight, the magnet moved and all of a sudden my magnets didn't match, and once it's down under here you can't take it off, and if you matted here you're kind of stuck. That's just one of the things I do to avoid frustration, is mat this one last and then put your magnet on the back here before you mat it, and then you can match it up after everything else is matted. So that's one closure you can do. You can do the ribbon. So if you want to do ribbon, again, it needs to go underneath that base for strength. And then this one, I just put underneath this pattern paper as I put it down. So you can do either. And because I do want a different look with this book, I think I'm going to go ahead with this. And I'm going to just find my center. Use my scoreboard. And I just cut a piece off. It ended up being, let's see, 1.5. So 3/4. No one will see these marks, so I'm not too worried. That's my half. So I know I need to match those up to have it pretty much even. Now what I'm going to do is just score tape the back side. And you do want to make sure this is down before we put this down on our book. I'm not really pushing there because I want to make sure I get this over the edge. Now, one thing you can do, you can make a gusset if you want a 1/4 inch gusset here, or I'm just putting it about 1/8 of an inch or 1/16 of an inch. So there's my fold, and then there's just a little spot, so when it folds over, it'll give me some room, and then I can just, so now you can see the gusset, not the gusset, but the score line. So I didn't put it right on there. And then I'll be able to put a large magnet, but I'm not going to do any of that right now. So let's turn it over, and you are going to want to go ahead and cover the back. And since I don't have any of my 6-inch sheets or 8.5 right handy, so I'm going to just open this. Just makes it a little bit easier to lay it flat. Go around these edges. And if you're using that type of a closure, and I'm going to add some extra down the middle because we don't want this to come up, since you will be pulling on it with your pages. It's a little more use. So there will be, that's going to be on my right side, and everything's white. I can't find anything, and this is going to be on my left side. So now we want to get started, and we're going to make our cover. So we know our book is 6 inches wide, and that's the neat thing. This is going to be a longer book. I love that it's longer, and so it's going to have to be 8. Let me see if I did 8.5 or 8.25 on this one. No, I did 8.5 on this one. So we're going to do 6.5 by 8.5, and then our spine is going to be 6.5 by 2. Okay, now this is the 6.5 by 2. You have to have 2 of those for this type of cover. Let me get these ribbons in. Okay. Okay, so you want 2 6.5 by 8.5 long pieces. Then you're going to want 2, because one on each end is 2 inches by 6.5 inches. And I did my fold over at 3. So 6.5 by 3. So 1 6.5 by 3, 6.5 by 2, 6.5 by 8.5. So let's get our chipboard cover. Let's get our chipboard cut, and we'll get back on and we'll cover it. And I used 3 sheets of the 12 by 12, and I'll be right back. We'll get everything cut and we'll get our cover made and assembled. Okay, so I got my chipboard. It's all cut. So I have my 2 6.5 by 8.5 inch long pieces. I have my 2 6.5 by 2 inch pieces, and 1 6.5 by 3 inch pieces. And what I'm going to do is join my 3 pieces of cardstock together, and it will be a little longer than what we need, but we'll cut it off and we can use the scraps for pockets or whatever. So along the cardstock, I cut it 8.5. I don't know if I can't remember if I just mentioned that. The reason being is you want it to be 2 inches wider than the chipboard, so you have an inch at the top and an inch at the bottom. And then if you don't have too much overlap there, then you won't have to worry about cutting it and getting it straight. So I'm going to put a piece of score tape. So if you're using any other adhesive, you're going to want to apply it to both sides. If you're using a wet adhesive, make sure it's, you know, very light. And remove these 2 pieces. And then here on my YouTube channel, I do have a video on how to do a cover for any size album, but I'm going to do it with this one since it's a little different size. But you can use the same video on the cover for any size album. You just want to change it to accommodate the size pages you're making by 2 inches. I mean by 1/2 inch wide and 1/2 inch long. That's what I generally go by. Sorry, for some reason it came up want me to save changes to my movie. Just a moment. Okay, I thought maybe I turned off the video. So I've got the score tape on the back of this one and on the front of that one. Now, one thing with this cover that I have found, I like to work backwards with it. So the flap would be on my right side, but to lay it on my chipboard, I always go from this side, and the reason being is the seams, and I'll show you now. This is kind of hard to get all in camera. I'm just going to lay it out. So that's my 3 inch piece, and I like to lay them out first. That's just one of the 1/2 inch spines. This reason here's my seam, and I want it to be behind this bigger piece. If you get it behind the bigger pieces, you don't have to worry about it falling in the hinges or maybe on the hinge. And as you can see, it's not as wide, so you don't have a lot of room to work. So that's why I like to to me it's like working it backwards, and we'll flip the cover. So that looks great to me. And I forgot to grab my score tape. Because when I'm putting a cover together, I love these 8.5 by 11 sheets. They're a lifesaver. They're awesome, and you don't have as much work. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this down to fit inside of there. And then these bigger pieces I'll use on my smaller pieces of cardstock. Just want to make sure, yep, everything looks great. So I'm going to rip the back off. Now if you are using a score tape or a different adhesive, go ahead and apply it around your edges, and then you're going to want about 3 or 4 rows of score tape down the middle. This is your cover. You want it on secure. And I'm just going to cut my next piece here. So I'm just going to basically get all of my score tape on. So, cut. Plus, I like the sheets. It saves on my rolls of score tape. They are $1.85 each on countrycraftcreations.com. So it takes about 2 sheets per cover, and if you think about a 1/2-inch roll, it's what, almost $5, and you're going to use about 3/4 of the roll, depending on the size of the album. That's why I like using my score tape sheets. Now I had a nice big hunk left that'll fit right into the 3-inch, and it doesn't have to go edge to edge. And then these sheets are wonderful. I have another video I'm doing on making flowers with it, and you're gonna love it. So now we have some little pieces left that I can cut to fit. Inside of that 2-inch, a little wide, but that's okay. I'll show you something cool too. With even though it's a nice big long sheet, I'm going to use it on here. Watch this. I can still tear it. Isn't that neat? Love it. And then with all these pieces that are left, I don't throw them away because they are useful. But for this one, I'm just going to put this little piece down. So now I'm going to do just a little bit of piecing and use just a piece of my 1/2-inch. And I'm set to go. Now, one thing that I do like to have is my 1/4 inch. I use it for spacing on all of my albums. And the reason being is I like to make sure there's enough space between. And then the other reason, the cardstock will lay a lot nicer. So once I kind of get my layout here, you can use anything you want. You don't have to use anything at all. But I'm going to just lay my ruler here. Sometimes I will score the bottom, but I'm just going to lay the ruler down, and I'm going to use it as a guide. So I try and keep my chipboard straight. So now I'm going to remove the back, and I do like this big ruler because it gives me some leverage. I'm going to hold it down, trying to keep things straight up and down. And I can move things kind of out of the way. Take my 1/4 inch score tape. And I've been doing this one for a long time. It makes it so much nicer. Now you can leave this on and remove it, but if you're okay with being able to see it, I just remove it. So the next piece is going to be our 2-inch spine piece. Sometimes I like to use a pick or tweezers to help get this off. Now I'm just going to line it up on the other side of that 1/4 inch score tape. And once again, my 1/4 inch. Now the next one to go down is going to be part of the cover. So I'm going to lay my ruler down. hang it on the other side of that score tape. And then if you have to take that off, that's where it's better. These little tools that come with Cricuts or Silhouettes are great. So our next one after our score tape is going to be the other hinge. Got a little crooked, but even if you do get off a little bit, it's okay. It won't show once we wrap our chipboard. Whoops. And another piece. And then the other cover piece. Okay, now because I have quite a bit left on this end, I'm going to take off almost all of it, but a quarter. I mean, but sorry, where did I come up with a quarter? I want to leave an inch, at least an inch, but not too much on that side. So now when you fold it, see, it'll reverse. So what I like to do now is see these seams, and it again depends on what paper you're using. So I'm just going to go along here with my bone folder and just kind of help break some of those fibers. In the paper and help it fold a little better. And then I just like to bend it back on the chipboard. Break those paper fibers. Now for the inside, we need to fold all this over, and I'm going to use I like to use my 1/2 inch on the outside, all along the perimeter. Down the sides. This is so long when working this way. I apologize that it's not all in camera. And then we're just going around this edge. And for the inside, because you have this blank space with no adhesive on it, I like to take the 1/4 inch so it will grab that bare paper when it bends over. Let's go along the edges, just make sure it's all down. Now here comes our corners. I just eyeball it, but you want to make sure you leave a little, at least 1/8 of an inch. And I show in my other videos, you can bend the paper back over and then you'll get a marking sort of where it comes together. Or you can just cut it and eyeball it. Or you can use a tool if you have that tells you the thickness of your chipboard. There's just a lot of different ways. So however you're comfortable is the best way to do it, actually. So now you're going to want to bend everything over, and I'm just going to go along these edges first because it just helps if you can soften them up a little bit. Okay, now we need to remove all of our adhesive if you're using score tape from every bit of our book. ends. And now this end. Okay, now we just want to start folding. Now when I grab this top, I'm pulling. If you sew, you kind of know what I mean. You need to pull your fabric, and this paper, your paper will stretch a little bit, and you'll notice it because it'll come down tight over the top of that chipboard, because you don't want any space between the chipboard and the paper. Or maybe you wallpapered. Remember those days? Oh, I got my finger stuck there. Let me put down, and I pulled back. Good and sticky stuff. Still stuck to me. Let's go ahead and pull it down over. If you get any of those little creases, kind of like a pleat, don't worry about it, because you're going to put more paper on top. Now for our end. Now on the end, get this in camera. You can pull it back, or usually I work with it facing me. I mean to the back of me. But you want to push that chipboard just over that corner piece, and then fold it over. And then let's do the same here. Fold it back. Just get that over the chipboard edge. Fold it over. Now we have to work on our seams. So here in your crease, this is one reason I like to have score tape under there. And I love this bone folder from, I believe it's a Fiskars, just from Joann's. It has kind of a fatter bottom, graduated, and I like to use it to push in that paper right into that score tape, and you should be able to bend your cover over. You won't be able to once we get that paper inside. By having this 1/4 inch spacing is what enables you to have a cover that's not cracking or breaking. And I know a lot of times in the past, until I figured out this is what I needed to be doing, was having a consistent 1/4 inch, or sometimes a 1/2 of an inch if I double my chipboard, and it really cut down on me having to really doctor up my covers because they were breaking. So now you'll see your cover starting to take shape, and we'll do magnets on the outside. Now if you don't have magnets, and so you're thinking, I don't know how to close this, you can open this up and you can put your ribbon here. And then what you're going to do next is you would put your ribbon back here on the back side by the seam underneath your pattern paper, and it will wrap around, and then you can tie it together. Right here you would cover the ribbon so that it let me show you. This is how I did it on here. Let me give you, so the ribbon is actually underneath this pattern paper, and then I put it underneath the hinge paper. Now see how it's secure, but it's there, and then this ribbon is right underneath that flap, and then you have that type of a closure. So if you don't have magnets, you can do this, but before we do the inside, you're going to want to get your ribbon down on the inside. 3-inch flap, it needs to go on the inside. So that is another way to close your albums. Now, and also there's another way, because I've had a lot of people ask me. On the back side, so you have to have this together. Turn it over. On the inside here, you can actually bring a ribbon on the inside around and up and over, and that will also work. Let me grab this. This is a really long piece. So for instance, you'd have it adhered underneath our inside that we're going to do. So I wanted to give everybody some options, since not everybody has access to magnets, or if you don't, I don't want to cut it. So see, that will keep it closed, and it's actually a very beautiful closure. And sometimes I'll add these, even though I have magnets, just because it looks really nice. So you want to, though, put it down on this inside cover. And like I said, I am taking a little extra time on this because I've had some people email me, and since I like my videos to be also available for new crafters, so it will go on the inside in here. And you can do, I don't like to use hot glue, it makes it too bubbly on my ribbon, but I like to use score tape back behind it, and then it will tie around here to the front. And again, if you want to have that other closure, you're going to put your ribbon down here, and we're going to cover it with the white paper, or black if you're using, and then you're going to put it here. And then it will come across. You're going to put your pattern paper on the hinge, and then it will be free to tie right here. And you know, I just might do that with this one, because on the inside I really like the look. Now we need to cover the inside. So for our inside, you cut off a piece from your hinge that was already, it was too long, not your hinge, when we covered it. You're going to want this piece. And we're going to cut the inside. So the inside 6.5. And I like to go about 3/4, I mean, not, my measurements are off today. I like to go about 1/8 of an inch shorter. So I wouldn't go 6.5. I'd go like 6 3/8, or probably about 6 3/8. So just cut it. I'd only go with about 1/16 of an inch or an inch first, so you can look and see. I like it to be pretty much covered, just a teeny tiny border around that edge. And then that will give you an idea of what size you need. And then you're going to need to cut 2 of these. And you want them to be perfectly the same width. Checking, since I haven't had that luck today. We're going out of, there we go. So this one will go down. Your 3-inch flap should be over here. See, then this one will, now we're just short that little tiny bit, and we'll take that off of that other piece that we cut from our cover. So to get started, now on this one, I am going to be using my score tape. And I'm going to go all the way around the perimeter. One reason I'm starting the inside at that 3-inch fold over flap, I don't want my paper to end in any of the hinge areas, and this will ensure that it doesn't, if that makes sense. Now, because I mentioned I'm going to put that ribbon inside, I'm going to do it just as a decorator and not as a complete closure. So I won't be putting it down until my pattern paper goes on, because I don't need it to be strength. It's just going to be for looks. But if you're doing it for your closure, go ahead and get it down. And then you're going to put this on top. Okay, now you just want to line this up, top to bottom. Now don't try and fold your album yet, just keep it flat. Let's do the same thing here. And if you don't have a 1/2 inch, you can use 3/4, 3/8, 1/4. You don't have to use a 1/2 inch here. If you're using a wet adhesive, I do recommend you be very careful in your hinged area. You don't want to get that too wet. And because my albums, I sell them, I don't use anything but score tape to adhere them. I tried it in the past, and I've had them come back when I was new to this. It didn't matter what I used. I tried my ATG gun. I tried different tapes, and they were brought back, and I had to fix them. So I learned right away that it's not worth it for me to buy a bunch of different adhesives, because I was spending more money on different adhesive than I was just on score tape. So that's why I just use score tape in all my albums, even matting my pages. Okay, now we're going to just make sure our top and bottoms are the same. And we're putting this on pretty straight. Alright, I'm having some issues, of course. There we go. Okay, now for this little piece, we have plenty of leftovers. And I'm just going to lay this down. And then I can mark it as to about how much I need. I just want about 3/4 of an inch overlap. So you just need a really little piece. And we're going to put this one down. And before we put our insides on, we are going to want to put pattern paper down on the inside. Because once you put your elements down, you're not going to be able to get anything around it. You'd have to piece it, and it would be no fun. Take it the wrong side, so I have a pencil mark. Sorry. Just get rid of that little pencil mark. Okay, I like to go around the edge, make sure my edges are down. Now we need to do some folding here. So as you can see, you can kind of see where it's starting. Again, take your bone folder very gently. Now if you don't have a bone folder, if you have a really sharp one, like I have a really sharp pink one thing that I really like to use is this pen. This is a great one because I can put it right in that crease gently, and I can push that. See, that top sheet needs to go down and catch onto the score tape. Now it's not going to be as easy to band, so I wouldn't force it like it was originally, because now you're getting some substance to your album. Bend that over. but you should not be hearing any cracking or popping. So now we've got our middle hinge here. Never force it. And I need to work it. There we go. Might have to fold it a little bit depending on the paper you're using. I'm using the Cartabella, so it needs to be encouraged a little bit more. So there is your cover, and I'm going to go ahead with my magnets. Now on all my covers, and this is just personal choice, you could probably get by with 2. I use 3. If you're using the small ones, you'll probably want, well, I would want 4. And I know with the Cartabella, not Cartabella, sorry, Basic Gray announcing that they aren't selling magnets anymore. They're getting out of the paper business. I want you to know though, on my website, Heartfelt Creations, I have bought a whole pallet. So they're not lasting long, but at least, I mean, a pallet's a lot of magnets. You should see my basement, but we will be able to have them for a while. They just decided they wanted to stay. They do quilting, so they just want to do quilting. Now I like to just take my top one off as usual. I'm just going to use, actually this is just one of the pieces that I cut from my bigger sheet, and I'm going to adhere that down. I know sometimes it might be overkill, but your magnets will tend to come up from the strength, and I like to make sure they're just down. Now I'm going to bring my book up, match my corners, pushing, I like to push against it so I know it's in there where it belongs. Really push those magnets down. Now I don't pull straight up because I don't want to lose these bottom ones. And now I can go ahead and just cover those with some score tape. Oh, that's too small. Just on the back side there. And there we have our cover. Okay, so let's go ahead now and let's get our inside done. And since I've already used, oh goodness, some of my cover's just coming apart, I'm going to just take this apart. Since I've already used this on my other album, my inside will be a little bit different for this one. Now on this one, I used the chalkboard typewriting, and then I used this like all different sayings sheet. So I'm going to pick a different one now because I've already used those. Oh, well, I've got 2 of these, so I'm going to go ahead. Nope, those aren't the same. I'm going to go ahead with that one. I'll use the back side, and it won't be enough. And I know that I'm going to want that shoe, so I'm going to cut it so I can still use my shoe and use the back. So our inside 6.5. Again, let's make sure we have that border. And I'm going to take mine down to the 6. Okay, good. Sorry, just making sure. See, I wanted to leave that about 1/8 of an inch border. It's just tiny around the edge. And the cover is 8.5, so I need to cut this down again. Oh, you know what? That's really pretty. I think I need to take a hair more off. Nope. But I do like that. See how it will look when I put... I think it looks good. Now I have enough. I should have enough. Now I can put this one in. And I need to cut another one. And it's the 8.5. And then I just need to put these two little guys in, which is the 2 by the 6.5. I think I'm just going to go ahead with the flowers, keep those going. And then over here, I'll just keep going with the wording. Or maybe not. Let's, oh, no, too small. But what I did is I made sure my wording, there we go. So the wording will just kind of run into each other. And then over here, I'll probably do that last. Because I don't, well, maybe we can get it off of there. I want to make sure I have this shoe, though, for, put that aside. I'm going to be using that. Yeah, see, I'll need to do this one later. So now, what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and come off camera for a minute because everybody, you know, you have your own way of doing things. So I'm going to take my black ink. I am going to use, me and black and white really don't always mix, but we're going to still try. So I am going to go ahead and ink my edges with the black. And actually I want to let this sit for a few minutes just so I don't smear it on the white. And I'm going to go ahead with my score tape around the edges and I'm going to adhere these 4 pieces down. And then when we get back, we're going to put down the elements that we made for our album. So I'll be right back. Okay, I have mine all cut, and now I went ahead and adhered mine down. So you know how you get that one piece, and it just, actually when I cut it, I really like the way it cut out the back side, so I ended up using that instead of the wording. So let's go ahead now, and we'll get our fold up here adhered down. Now it's up to you where you want to put it. I just kind of look top to bottom, try and center it as best as possible, and then remove the back covering of whatever you're using for adhesive. Now after you put that down, you will want to open it. Now when you start opening it, there's lots and lots of room in here, isn't there? Okay, and then I'll take the bone folder. Make sure we get hopefully everything down. Okay, so that's all down and ready to be decorated. Now on this side, same thing. Now remember, if you're going to put your ribbon down, make sure it's going down now. So you're only going to have about a half, not even a half of an inch, maybe 3/8 of an inch over here, a little over, I mean under. So you'll want to, you know, really look at it, make sure you've kind of got a eye's view of where you want to center this. Now, what I'm going to do is, after this video, I'm going to go ahead and load it, because it is running into, it's going to be a very long video. And there's a part 2. So the part 2 will be our decorating. So we've got this part done so you can get started. Now when we go to put this down again, I'd keep your fingers back there until you're absolutely sure where you want it. And I try to get it the same distance from top to bottom. Now after it's down, you can open it up. And then just go along the 1/2 inch here. And there. Let's see, that will all come in, and we'll have that magnet on there. And then when you close your book, you'll notice you've got plenty of room in there, because we're going to be making the flowers. So when we come back and decorate it, now one thing I'm going to do on my spine, so I'm going to do it with you, is the corset. So we're going to do a corset type binding, and I've done another video on it, but we're going to do it again because I feel the corset binding will look just fantastic with this one. And I'm going to just decorate this top sheet, and I'm going to give me the pockets with you on the very last ones. And then you can, because all you're doing is matting your sheets. But for this one, it's going to be, I'm going to use the same one. It's going to be the shoe, and because I did have to cut mine a little different, I am going to mat it with black behind. Yours, if you haven't cut any of your papers, will be just fine. Because remember, I cut it for here. So I'm going to mat it with black in the back, and it'll also bring it out. Now, these are the flowers. And we'll be making different flowers because I felt I wanted to 3D it a little bit more. So that's what we'll be doing there. And oh, and over here, then I did one small flower. And we will be making that. But as for matting it, it's very simple. You just go ahead and cut your mats. Remember, your pages are 6 by 6. And I'll do this one with you. And then what I did here, remember this is 6 inches long, then I had plenty of scraps. So just take your scraps and you're going to cut about a 3/8 of an inch. You'll kind of have to play with it and see exactly on your cutter because you want it to fit right inside there. And I put one here, and you can put one back here if you want. Don't have to. It just depends on if you want to. Just make sure you've left room. And then you'll have that part of your book done, and we will do, I'll do this piece. And like I said, I usually wait because I want to make sure I have a scrap. I don't want to have to use a whole piece of paper to cut up. And then we'll be doing the cover together, and I'm going to do the corset spine with you back here. So on this one, I'm not going to punch a hole. Now I punched a hole in the other one because I wanted to dangle a charm, and I'm still going to do it on the other one, but where I'm putting a corset here, I don't want to do that. If you want to, then just go ahead and punch your hole, and then you can put a charm in there. You could, possibly do it on this side if you still wanted to have a charm on this side, but I'm going to do more like the ruffles because I just think this is such a girly album. So I'm going to go ahead now, and I'll get this one uploaded. And then part 2 will be the decorating of the inside and our cover. And thank you so much for watching.